So we'll call the September 2016 meeting of the Police Advisory Commission to order. Our secretary, Chuck Rolls, is running late, so I will take over some of his secretarial duties, which have been, let's see, he has the review of the minutes, which we've already reviewed and approved. So the June 20th and July 18 minutes were approved at the August 22nd meeting. We also, oh, he's given us a summary. There's an approval given for, hi Ben, to have public hearings on body cameras. And so I'm hoping that you're going to tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
The next items on our meeting, on our agenda, is a list of the future meetings, October 17th, November 21st, and December 19th. My report is simply that Kelvin may go into this a bit further, but we had an opportunity to meet with some folks in the city and the city government that we hope and believe are supportive of the Police Advisory Commission, and that we are discussing the possibility of inviting them to join our October 17th meeting. Both Brian Abernathy and Judge Lerner said that they would like to come to a meeting and that we should be sure to invite them, and so we'll do that.
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to give us your report?
Absolutely. So, let's see. So far this year, we have 23 complaints. We added 2 since we met last time in August. That brings us to roughly the same amount we had at this time last year, which was 24. Our investigators still have 39 open investigations from the last 2 years, between 2014 and 2016. Internal Affairs now has a total of 450 citizens complaints. They're running about 20% less than at this time last year, when there were 563. Our audit basket contains 148 complaints at this time. In terms of the long-standing requests we've had for officer-involved shooting requests, the police department has begun to provide the records from 2007. You will recall that our original request back from 2013 was to receive all of the shooting records from 2007 to 2013. The department has now scanned and made those available to us electronically, which is helpful. So we received that first batch of 93 officer-involved shooting files from 2007 last week. And we also received just this week 6 final reports in some of those audited cases we were looking at from 2015. We'll be turning out final reports in all 6 of those. Citizens' complaints, Internal Affairs, as they do each month, gave us copies of all of the complaints from June and July 2016. And we will obviously be looking at those complaints to determine if any of those should be in our audited file as well. In my attempts to get the annual report ready for release this month, I ran into a big snag. I actually found, after talking with a couple of reporters who had received information from the department, that there's some significant discrepancies between the information that I have, that we've gathered from IA Pro and have compiled from our own data, particularly around the total number of complaints, the number of complaints that were sustained and what those categories are. So I really need to sit down with Internal Affairs and some of the police department's data people to try and work out what those discrepancies are, because they're fairly significant, and they actually have caused me to go back in and recalculate several of the major categories of information we want to report out in the complaint, or in our report. I apologize for that, but we really have to be accurate with this, so I have to sit down with them over the next week or 2 and try to get that done in advance of the October meeting. On Vanessa Shallett's case, I actually have with me the final response from Internal Affairs answering the questions that we put to them a couple months ago about the conclusions in that case. I'll share that with you. We also have similar set of questions that we placed to Internal Affairs in the Charmaine Humphreys case, and we're waiting for a response from them on that.
Remind us the Charmaine Humphreys case?
Humphreys case is a domestic violence case. This is officers responded to a situation with Mrs. Humphreys' ex had actually gotten into a fight with her. She had fired a warning shot from a weapon. Police showed up. She had some marks on her from the encounter with him. And our concerns are really around how the department responded to that particular case. The final report actually exonerates the officers in that case. It's similar to our conclusions in the Shallot case. We don't think that that exoneration was founded in the information that we had and where Internal Affairs turned out. So we've got some questions that we put to Internal Affairs around that particular case.
In the Koshman case?
And that's in the Humphreys case.
Right, but the concerns are the same as in Koshman in terms of how the investigation was handled?
Well, that's a different case. The Koshman case really concerns how they handled the scene at that time. Though they both involve some instances of domestic violence, they're a little bit different. On the Koshman case, which is next up, we've actually been able to secure the services of a prominent local forensic pathologist who is going to join the detective who also volunteered his time in this case to review the materials in that case and come up with his assessment of how the case was investigated. So we're looking forward to that. We've also continued to interview the folks in the medical examiner's office. This past week, we interviewed the investigator who actually responded to the scene, took the photos, and did the initial investigative report out of the case. Our next step after we hear back from the forensic pathologist who has agreed to look at the case is then to take our questions down to Delaware. The pathologist who wrote the report in the Koshman case now is the lead pathologist for the state of Delaware. He has agreed, we talked to him about a month or two ago, and he has agreed to be interviewed about the case, so that's our next step there.
Right.
We completed an audit in a case that came to us via an unhappy complainant. He did not like the conclusion that Internal Affairs released. We completed an audit in that case. I'll share that with you in the executive session as well. It's essentially a landlord-tenant case. The responding officer, a sergeant, was exonerated in that case. Our conclusion agrees with that, but I'll get into the details with you on that case in executive session. In terms of the body-worn camera hearing, I did meet with Councilman Jones as legislative counsel. The councilman is very much on board with us and agrees that a hearing is appropriate. We're going to plan the hearing in conjunction with his office sometime this fall. From his statements, hopefully, obviously before the end of the year. We'll try to get that on the books as soon as possible and let people know. The plan would be to have a traditional city council type hearing where we're going to take live testimony from experts. Actually, a number of prominent folks who have been involved in this question nationally have approached us and want to testify already, including the people who did the body camera analysis around the country. They're actually preparing a special report on Philadelphia, and they're going to present that. Their goal is to present that at our meeting. In addition to the standard meeting, we'll obviously put together some type of web and social media platforms to allow people to respond and ask questions in that way as well.
In real time?
Not necessarily real time, but we'll just put up something that says, what are your questions about body camera policy? We're having a hearing on date X.
Right.
Da, 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 da. So that'll allow people to submit questions and other information online as we also do the live hearing. Been at several community outreach and public events over the last couple of weeks. We had our standard RISE, Know Your Rights workshop that Joe and Ed Pace were involved with. I did the Police Community Relations Forum with State Representative Acosta last Thursday up in North Philly. And last Friday, I did the Congressional Black Caucus Criminal Justice Forum down in Washington at the invitation of Texas legislator Shirley Jackson Lee. That was a pretty interesting panel. Several police chiefs who were involved in the Police Data Initiative, one for Charlotte-Mecklenburg, the chief of Atlanta, myself, a couple of reporters who've been doing some reporting on police shootings. Very good forum down in D.C. on last Friday. As a result of that also, we've become, I've been involved with that legislator's particular bill that she has out. This is the Law Enforcement Trust and Integrity Act, which is a bill that they're putting forth through the Judiciary Committee that would actually bring more money to groups like ours, to community groups who are interested in police-community relations. So looking forward to see where that legislation goes. I'm also involved in the Lincoln University's mentoring program for criminal justice students. Last Saturday, we did a presentation on police accountability for about a dozen of those students out at Lincoln University. Two other major initiatives have just come up in the last couple of weeks that are going to be very useful to us as we move forward is the Nextdoor 90-day trial. Nextdoor is a social media platform that is a neighborhood-based platform. So we can now use this particular platform to actually poll folks in various neighborhoods, and we can target our questions or information that we want to put out to various neighborhoods or by police district. For example, with the meeting last Thursday, I was able to isolate the 5 police districts that were involved and send a message directly to the folks in those 5 police districts that we're having a meeting, blah, 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 blah. We can do the same thing.
In what format?
This is all electronic. This is through the platform itself. If you're a member of Nextdoor, you get all of the alerts from all of the city agencies and others. We're now the 8th city agency that is part of this. Town Watch is also part of it, the Office of Emergency Management, and a couple, Philly Rising is also part of this. And again, the power of this platform is to really target our efforts to very specific areas. So if we're, for example, if we're holding a meeting next month that is in the 24th district, we can target our message directly to the folks who use Nextdoor in the 24th district.
So that requires then the citizens to have signed up for that.
Correct.
For that service.
Correct.
And so how many people have signed up?
There are roughly 35,000 across the entire city. It's concentrated primarily right now in Center City. Some of the areas where it's growing more is my area, West Philly. Some of the areas in the 19th district in Northwest. So it's starting to spread more, but pretty much in every community you can find, a dozen or so folks who are involved. And these tend to be folks who are very involved in other things as well. So it makes it very easy to contact folks who are very active in their area. So this will supplement our other efforts.
Has anyone heard of this?
I haven't heard of it.
No?
Yeah, definitely you're going to have to join now. I'll send you all the information on how to join.
Nextdoor, okay.
Joe, that's going to be you. Right. So yeah, this is, and we're actually the first oversight agency in the U.S. participating in this. I've been talking with them, not just about Philly, obviously, because of our role with the national organization, but in using this as a tool for other oversight agencies who are trying to gather information or to poll their members. For example, with the body camera issue coming up, we can put out a poll that says, okay, well, here's how body cameras work. What do you think about this? What do you think about the retention period? What do you think about that? And we can use that information to assist us in making decisions on what else we need to do or what, in assessing how well citizens are aware of certain things the police department is doing, et cetera. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
Did you say it was a trial?
Yeah, there's the platform itself is very careful about who it lets actually use it. They've been rolling it out slowly. It began primarily as a public safety platform, but of course they begin to expand from police departments to offices of emergency management, Town Watch is in there, Philly Rising, Streets Department, other groups that do a lot of neighborhood by neighborhood things. So it's a good platform. I think the most interesting thing about it is they've really tried very hard to eliminate racial profiling in some of the postings. They discovered that a lot of neighbors were posting public safety information based on they saw somebody who looked strange in their neighborhood. Oh, there's a black guy in my neighborhood, there must be something wrong. So they discovered that, you know, a lot of people were just posting information, you know, saying, okay, yeah, I see somebody suspicious, he's this. So what they've done is they tried to really eliminate that, and they use the research that the Harvard folks who are trying to combat implicit bias in police departments are using. So they're now trying to get people, they're actually going through all of the posts and identifying posts that sort of don't fit or that are actually, they appear to be some type of racial profiling, and then going back to the neighbors and saying, well, you really should put more information in there other than just the race of someone you saw, things like that. So I think I was very impressed with that approach. It's one thing to put up a piece of software, it's another one to subject it to this level of scrutiny and actually try to put together algorithms that eliminate racial profiling in some way. So I think that's a very impressive approach for this group of folks. I've had a lot of conversations with their folks, and I'm very interested to see how this moves forward. Likewise, the other piece of software that we're really trying to put into play here is a business intelligence platform called Tableau. What you see on your sheet here is a map that the Citizens Complaint and Review Board in New York has using Tableau. And basically they just feed all their complaint data into it. It has location information. So you can now sort of flip through their map and see where complaints are filed in various parts of the city. Similar to the open data stuff that we released back in 2013, but it's a lot more robust. I actually submitted all of the publicly available stop and frisk data and poured that into this, and I'm working with their developer now to try to make sense of that information. And this again is another very promising platform for us to be able to display all the information that we've gathered around complaints, around officer-involved shootings, stop and frisk, or what have you.
This is free, right? This software?
No, actually we can afford it almost. It's only $2,000 per seat for the most robust part of it, and that would allow me then to pluck data out of pretty much anything the police department has and display it. And it also gives you back-end server capability too, so we can now control what happens on the back end as much as what comes out on the front end. It's also works on all of the social media platforms. You can plug in all these maps and infographics into Facebook, Twitter, anything you want to. So,
and can you see it down to the neighborhood? I mean, I'm looking at this map. So you can see it by the city.
Yeah, it's not. It's not
by block. I mean,
it's not very evident just from this static image, but yeah, you can slide this down to the neighborhood at the block level, and you can see exactly what's going on there too.
So I guess it's worth noting that I've been using Tableau at work for about 3 years now. You should be able to talk them down to 1,500, especially as a city agency.
Great.
So yeah, don't spend money that you don't need to.
No.
And there are a number of issues. There's a public server, and you can use the online versions of the public server to host the visualizations, share those with the public, embed them in your websites. But you need to be very careful about how you provide access to the underlying data and hiding anything that's potentially an identifier in terms of name and location. And that just involves very meticulous control on the developer end, i.e. whichever of us will be doing that. But public is absolutely very useful. We don't use it at my employer. I suppose it's worth noting, I just helped my employer secure like a multi-year multi-million-dollar contract with Tableau. I didn't get any kickbacks from them, but I know my way around it. And I have some ideas. I've actually built maps for my work. So if you're interested in what is going on in particular neighborhoods, this gets down to, I believe, the zip block, census tract level, geographically, if you want to get that granular. Alternately, it understands conventional geolocation, so it wouldn't recognize police districts. The new version of the software does custom geographic areas, but they're kind of a pain to build in. But yeah, as long as we have access to these data, we can do something just like this, where you're showing clusters of where are complaints coming from. If you want to filter by the kind of complaint, you can look to see that as well. It's a really powerful tool. I'm actually really excited, if you can't tell, to hear that we have access to it. And the most important thing about Tableau is that it's only as good as the underlying data that you have.
Right.
And that means a lot of cooperation from the PPD.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you won't be surprised to know, Michael, I signed you up as my partner in this for our trial, so knowing full well that you were excited about this tool, so
yeah.
I hope you don't mind that I did that. So,
No, happy to.
So yeah, we're very much looking forward. I think between the two of these platforms, we got a lot covered, because as Michael pointed out, though Tableau does not allow me to go down necessarily to the district level, Nextdoor does. So in some ways I can then use both of these platforms to do related but different things. So we're very excited about trying to integrate these two tools into our reporting structure. And that is my report for this evening.
Thank you. Phoebe is our counsel. Phoebe Kivitz is not here this evening. So I think we are at old business.
Well, other than I already reported where we are on the annual report, which is part of old business, other than that, I don't know the other business.
Okay. Any new business? No. Any public comment? No. Well, I think this has been a brief but fruitful meeting. So thank you. Thank you for your time tonight. And, oh, please.
August, YouTube is up. So you have July and August from this meeting. So, and
Okay.
Charlie's going to try to get them before the next meeting, September.
Thank you.
And you're still keeping an eagle eye on that case. I forget the name.
Elaine
Bernstein.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Didn't come up yet?
Now, as I reported, it takes a while. And interestingly, we only got one case for PBI for this upcoming month. That's unusual, so Kelvin did question it.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning. I'm a little perplexed as to how we can proceed forward. I know that their docket is pretty heavy, but to only be able to do one case in a month's time seems odd. So I want to look into that a little bit further. One of the things it's worth mentioning also, one of the things that remains on the table from the DOJ is possibly combining the use of force review board with PBI. UFRB, for example, just sent a bunch of cases, shooting cases that we considered at last month's meeting to PBI for action. We've done this since I've been on in November. We need to figure out exactly what happens to those cases once they go to PBI. So that's another important question that's out there.
Okay. Well, thank you. Hearing nothing else, the meeting is adjourned. We'll see you October 17th. And you'll have that posted, right?
Yes.
Anywhere other than here?
Yes.